Hey everyone, RuneCloak here, and in this video I'm going to be going over the new cards that have been revealed for Northern Realms for the upcoming Claw and Dagger expansion, which will be in Gwent next week. And also in this video I'm going to be going over a couple deck ideas I've had with the new cards, just putting them together, and I know there will be some reworks and nerfs and buffs that will accompany these cards, but I just wanted to show where my head's at and kind of showcase some deck ideas I had that came to mind upon seeing these cards and thinking about them for a few days. But first up on our list we have Redanian Agent. So this is just the basic bronze card that came with this expansion. It's 4 power, 4 provisions. It has Veil, which is very nice. And then as order, boost a unit in your deck by 1, cooldown 2. So we got some deck boost cards. This one's pretty neat. It's a 4 provision card, so you're okay if it gets answered, but the Veil is really nice actually, because you can boost it up without fear of poison or a bounty. It can't get bled and it can't get locked, so it really can only be removed by damage. And having this a deck boost kind of archetype that you're putting it all together, this could even come down with more power than just 4, meaning that it's more likely to stick and give you that deck boost. So in terms of its point potential, it's a little below par. It's 1 point every other turn. Like I said, it's a little hard to answer with this cooldown too, so you really want to be maximizing what units you're boosting. Now of course we got Sigismund Dijkstra, which we'll be going over soon, but that's one way to double the boost, making this more 1 point per turn or 2 points every other turn, kind of like Dandelion, who's the other deck boost card that we already have in Gwent. And other options on these ones where you can kind of double the boost are Duelers. So one of my decks has Duelers, and it's an inspired Zeal list for that kind of concept. Let's see, you can also have it work with inspired cards like Anna Stranger or Lanchnecks, and work out that way. You can also just have it for carryover, like a Muter Generator type deck, or Erland. So there's some options there, and what's nice, so even if this card is a little slow in the round you play it, the carryover can be really good, especially if you're playing it in a card where you don't really want to win, or you have access to that card. It's kind of comparable to Hand Buff, where you're potentially getting carryover and you don't have as much tempo or points in that round. But in this way, like I said, you need access to those cards, so either drawing them out with Erland or some kind of thinning or tutor card to really get these points back that you're boosting from your deck. Let's see what else to know about this card. It also has Order cooldown synergy, which could work with different Northern Realms cards like Lyran Cavalry or Lyran Arbalists, or Hubert, or working with Siege Masters and stuff like that as well, or Winch or Stuck pile charges. And yeah, let's go to the next one. Alright, next up we got Redanian Secret Service. So this is a really nice card. It's another kind of auto-thinning card. You can make it work yourself. Well, first let's go over the stats, right? So Redanian Secret Service, Human Agent, 1 power, 6 provisions, 1 for 6, but Zeal Order, Purify, and Allied Unit. So they kind of come in, and then if you do not control Redanian Secret Service, when an allied unit gains a status, summon self from your deck to its row. So you have 2 of these to the deck. They could auto-thin too, but you can't get them both in the same round. You could brick them, but the order is really nice. Purifying an allied unit, especially in Northern Realms, which is the engine faction or the threat faction. And it has synergy with one of the other new cards, Drakenborg, as well, where you're adding a status to unit, but we'll go over that. Redanian Secret Service is really nice as a bronze card that thins. Northern Realms has a lot of good thinning options. This is nice to have from your deck, instead of Siege Master, which is a common one for Northern Realms decks that wants to thin a lot, but you have to draw the Siege Master. Whereas this, you just have to have a status on your unit. There's ways you can do it yourself with cards like Violet Forbidden Knowledge, different Vitality cards like Sentry and Knight, Sentry and Enchantress, lots of Sentry cards like Vitality there, or with Doomed stuff like Shani, like Necromancy, and one of the synergies I really like with this card is Sangreal. I saw it in a Twitch chat, I can't remember who mentioned it first, but Sangreal is kind of a cool card with this, where you boost a unit by 12, purify it, and then you infuse it with damage self by 12 at the end of the round. But in this case, Redanian Secret Service, you give a unit the 12 boost, and the Secret Service can just pop out and purify that infusion right away, meaning you get nice 13 tempo there. You don't get to use the Purify in different cases, and if you don't have your Secret Service, the Sangreal is just as bad as normal, but also it's kind of fun flavor-wise, because the cards Don't Drink the Wine, and you're giving poisoned wine to your own unit, with the idea that your agents will come and save the day. So that can be a fun synergy. Other than that, it's very... like I said, the thinning is nice, and I think you want to have options to give your own unit status for this to pop out, just to make sure you get that thinning, because it's a very bad brick as a 1/6, especially in that kind of instance where you don't have things to purify from your opponent's side of the board. And it is only allied units, so it's still not a defensive purify for Northern Realms, so your opponent's positive statuses will still stick around, like Defender, like Resilience, like their Vitality. So it's more of a defensive kind of card like that. It's also nice in this deck boost type archetype because you can boost it, knowing those are points you'll get back, either carry over in a different round or in the same round for extra points, kind of like when you play All God on Roach to just get 2 of those points right away. But yeah, it's a good target for deck boost in that sense, because it's not a card you have to play, so it's kind of free points in one sense. Let's see. Yeah, and this card could be a little meta dependent. I think it's good on its own, and like I said, you can activate it yourself. But it also depends if there's a lot of, like, if Bounty sticks around the next patch, you know, this is a card you definitely want to have in deck ready to go to protect your units. Get rid of that Bounty or Poison or even Bleeding from like a Executioner, although that wouldn't be ideal. But again, it's a bit of a meta card as well, but I think it's good overall. Alright, let's go next. Alright, next up we got Drakenborg. So this is the epic card. It's a 9 provision artifact location with resilience, as locations tend to have. It's a very interesting card. Let's go over the abilities though first. I'm getting ahead of myself. So deploy, you can summon a unit from your deck to this row, lock it, and remove its boost. And then on order, boost an ally unit by 0, and increase its value by the amount of boost that was removed. So this is a bit of a funky card, right? So it's some thinning. So you're pulling a deck, pulling a unit from your deck, and then you're locking it. So that's adding a status, which is when the Redanian Secret Service could pop out, or you can use it on a card that you don't really care if it gets locked, like a Veiled unit, for instance. It doesn't have like a deploy ability, but I don't really know. I guess you could use it on like a Redanian Agent, for instance, in that sense, so it's not locked, and you still get the second part of it, which is just removing its boost to then put on like another unit. You can also, boost an ally unit by 0. So then you're going to get hopefully a big order from this card, so you can play a little uninteractive, you know, pulling out a unit like Siggy, this new Siggy DJ card. He's going to be a real boosty boy, and we're going to go over him next. But a card like that's gotten a lot of deck or even hand boost from like Griffin Witcher Mentors. Think like Melitali gets really boosted up. You can just pull that unit out, and then it locks it, and then it'll take that boost and kind of store it in the artifact itself. Now this artifact can get answered, and then it's really just like a thinning piece. So the second part is pretty key there. The resilience is pretty nice. Like you can use it at the end of a round just to get like some points from the base power of that unit, because it will again get reset. And then having that order carry over for the next round, let's say to like bleed into round 2 or for like a short round 3, for instance. Some of the better targets for the order from the boost, it depends how big it gets, but you can use it on cards like on Sace or Selkirk with Zeal, or like even a Mad Kirin, and just get kind of double value on that boost, the same way that you kind of would with deck boost. In a way, this card reminds me of Vandergrift's Blade, which was reworked a while ago to damage enemy unit by 5, death blow, store that unit's base power in the sword, and then the next unit you play will get boosted by it. So it's kind of similar synergies in that respect, where there's certain cards you want to boost. Like the Duelers, I think, are the best value. Also, like Knights can be pretty good with this, because it can help you activate their Grace, so again, getting extra value on boosting the card and not just boosting any old card by 5 and just have it be like 5 raw points, for instance. But this order should be a lot bigger, I think. We'll have to see what kind of average the deck boost card that you pull out, how that will look. But I think that's one of the considerations of how powerful this card will actually be, and that can be tough to estimate how much things happen in practice. I remember like with like Melitali came out, or Traveling Priestesses back in the day, there's a lot of estimation and theorizing of how many boosts or charges or shuffles they would get, and they ended up far exceeding that, I think, and became a little bit toxic, a little bit overkill. So we'll have to see how this one works. And of course there's a very abusable aspect to this card with Dimbriandras. Like let's say you really go all out boosting a super powered card, and then you get to use that order multiple times with Dimbriandras. I think that could be pretty bad if that interaction is around and if it's competitive. I like this card in other ways. I don't want to use that combo in my decks. I think there's more interesting ways to play around with it, and less all-in ways, because then if you get heat waved or Shooped, and you lose your Drakenborg. Those Dwims are not really playing for much at all. Let's see. So yeah, Duelers, Knights, Grace cards, I think those are some of the good options. This also has 9 provisions, so it could fit in Golden Necro decks, but then you don't get your big target of Siggy. So, but there could be some playing around with it. I'd like to see this card in different varieties of decks. It's also cool card art, and yeah, I think that's about it for there. Let's go to the next one, the final card for Northern Realms here. So now we get Sigismund Dijkstra, or DJ or Siggy, a lot of nicknames. Northern Realms, Siggy, you know, Syndicate has a couple, Northern Realms has one too, and this card art was around for a while, so people were happy to see it again. I didn't play in beta, so I didn't know him back then, but now this is a pretty cool card. So 4 power, 12 provisions, order, play a boosted unit from your deck, and then while in deck, whenever this unit receives a boost from other abilities, boost self by the same amount. Other abilities is an interesting concept. I mean, or interesting wording there. Often you'll see other abilities like including self. Oh, I guess that's to make it so you don't, like, let's say if it didn't have that wording, you know, you boost him by 1 from like Redanian Agent, and then he boosts himself, and then he's in deck and he just got a boost, then he'd boost himself again, and it would go up for infinity. So that doesn't happen. But he basically doubles any deck boost that he receives. So he's kind of, in one sense, like an Iglace from Scoia'tael, and again, there's that comparison between hand buff and deck buff. But I think he can get pretty big. Like, each boost you do from Redanian Agent's worth 2 points. Dandelion can boost him by a bunch, and there's that friendship between Dandelion and Siggy once again. But let's see, Dandelion, with this on top of the deck, will boost him by 2 every turn, and then with the cooldown 2, the boost to selected unit in deck, Dandelion can boost him by 4 every other turn, which is pretty crazy. And then you have cards like Care Seren boosting by 3, which will boost him by 6. You could have like Erlander Muter Generator boosting by a couple. Those ones probably aren't as good. I think you want to use more bronze setup to just boost him big. So he's your main target, I think, for deck boost and also for like Drakenborg there. And the order is pretty good too. So it depends what kind of deck you're using. Like Northern Realms has ways of giving Zeal between like Vest and Siege support and Inspired Zeal leader ability, as well as cards like neutral cards like Petri Filter. I think that's really the only one. But so there's options to give him Zeal in a non-inspired Zeal deck. But if you're doing so, and that's where it can be good that he's boosted by so big, you know, that he can survive damage. I mean, he can still get locked or just tar removal. So you kind of want reliable ways of giving him Zeal, I think, and using that order, and not just relying on your opponent not having an answer to him. Although if you have Redanian Secret Service, then that's one way, and they're still in deck, that's one way to keep him around. Like, he gets locked and they just pop out and save him. So there's some synergy there. And the play a boosted unit from your deck is nice. So basically you can tutor any unit from your deck with that order ability if it's boosted, and you can spend a turn using some of your deck boost on a non-Siggy target in order to give him a target then therefore. And with him, he doesn't have a deploy ability, so he's your Drakenborg target. You know, pull him out, he gets locked, and you can use any of your Purifies, like your Redanian Secret Service will again pop out right away because he'll be locked. Or if you have other Purifies in the deck, like let's say you also have the option to remove statuses from your opponent's side of the board, or you just feel like those 2 proactive status Purifiers aren't enough, then you can have like a Peller, and then use his order like that. Although that'll take a couple turns because he'll be locked immediately from Drakenborg, so he still won't be able to use his order till the next turn. So if you have like a card like Peller, right, then you can't use his order. So it'd be Drakenborg, Peller, and then the turn after that you'd be able to use his order. And again, it's an order, so you could play him with Viraxas too and use him on multiple boosted targets, just giving some more thinning, some more tempo, just another target for Viraxas as well. And like I said, Duelers are good targets for deck boost. So if you're playing something like All God, where you're boosting multiple cards in deck, then you know you're boosting Siggy, of course, but you can also have these other targets with like these knights like Selkirk, and Selkirk could work in an Inspired Zeal version. One of the decks I've conceptualized or theory crafted so far has all those top end gold cards with Siggy, with Viraxas, with Onsace, with Selkirk. So you could just have him start throwing out like these big knights or even just like boosted bronzes could be nice as well. So I think he's a pretty cool card. He's very central, and he's going to be in deck, so we'll have to see if the Nilfgaard mill cards are around, because that could really mess this deck up. They would just steal or destroy or remove any or banish just all of your big cards like this. Like Sigismund would be very much a threat against. He'd be very much threatened by cards like Vilgefortz, like Cantarella, and Triherne especially, who gets that extra vision on what to mill. So hopefully those cards won't be super prominent in the meta, and maybe they'll even get changed. I know a lot of people want Triherne to be his ability to just be removed outright, and I'm with them on that. It feels bad when he just takes your win condition. But in a non-Triherne world, this card could be really good. And even just having like a big finisher between like Sigismund here, and then with Drakenborg, and then that Purify, and then next turn like using the Order on Drakenborg, on Siggy, and just pulling out all these cards and points. So I think there's some cool stuff going on with that. Could be a bit of uninteractive type deck, but I think the things with uninteractive decks is they kind of need last say, and they can't really fight for that so much in the earlier rounds. So if your opponent has enough Tall Punish, like with hand buff for instance, which can be very uninteractive, but I've been playing a lot of hand buff, and if your opponent has multiple Tall Punishes, it's not looking as good. So I don't know how competitive these decks will be, these Northern Realms decks with the new deck boost, but I'm excited to try them out. I love agents as a concept, and so yeah, let's show some of my decks, I think. So I've come up with 2 deck ideas for this. One is a Hyperthin version. I wanted extra payoff on the deck boost that you're getting, and so I actually have literal Hyperthin with Triss Marigold and Yennefer Divination. So hopefully by the time you play them, this is like round 3, you've boosted your Sigismund, and the way I did it with I call him Sigismund, Siggy, DJ, you just have to roll with me. The way I put him in the deck builder is this is Drakenborg and this is Siggy. So I wanted to keep the balance of units and artifacts, and there's not really there's no 9 provision artifact that I could use. Oh wait, all cards. Yeah, no 9 provision artifact. I guess I could have. Oh, there's Tainted Ale, but I didn't want to put in a 12 provision card that I might actually put in. So I guess I could have done differently, but I had fun doing it like this with one 12 provision artifact and then this 9 provision unit. I wanted to put Gregor in as a stand-in. It's just a knight. It would be cool if I could actually play it. But anyway, so this is Siggy, this is Drakenborg, and then these 1 power 6 provision cards. These are the Redanian Secret Service, and then these Fury Merchants, which are cards I would not play, are the Redanian Agents, and that'll be the same for my other deck. So the idea with this one is, you thin to, I think you thin to 2 cards, right? With Siggy as one of the cards left in deck. So then, in case you are able to activate his Order or Pincer Maneuver, we don't have any Zeal Givers, so I'm not guaranteed on that. If you are able to activate his Order, you can keep another boosted unit in deck and kind of swap it around a bit, so you still get good value on the Triss and Yennefer. And the sequencing will be a bit awkward. I haven't played this deck, obviously, it's not real yet. But you can use like this Yen and Triss, and then like Drakenborg got the Siggy. Maybe you have a Secret Service in there too. Again, there'll be some shuffling around, or you draw them with leader after the fact, and you can Drakenborg other targets because again they'll pop out and they can be saved with this. But yeah, so you get a big Siggy in deck. You boost him up with cards like Care Seren, like All God Offerings, and then Redanian Agents. Again, these are Fury Merchants. So then in the round 3, you can use this Triss and Yen, and then you can thin him out by either drawing him a leader to play or using the Drakenborg. And there's a few options there. And his Order's not so... Like, his Orders could be good, but it's not something that we always want to do necessarily. So I didn't put too much thought into worlds where his Order sticks, because I think you're already kind of happy if he sticks when he's super boosted, or... what am I saying? Yeah, and like because it is Hyperthin, we're thinning most of our cards anyway, so we're not really using his Order to that great of effect, and maybe that's a missed opportunity here. But I think it's kind of fun. I wanted to do this because like a big boosted unit in deck. Also with the new cards, like there's some good thinning there. Drakenborg thins, the Redanian Secret Service will thin themselves, and so it's some new Northern Realms thinning options. I'm like, why not just go this route and play with Hyperthin here. So we also have Onsace as another deck boost target, and that could be a card you may put back in your deck to then use the Order with Siggy if you have that situation. We also thin with Hubert, Best Boy here, the Secret Services. We have Siege Masters, and then we have Strays of Spala double because we really don't want Siggy in hand. We also don't want Hubert or Best Boy in hand. We don't want these payoff cards in hand either in the earlier rounds, nor do we want the Drakenborg. So there's a lot of targets for you to shuffle away that trades the Spala, and your bronze cards you have to play all anyway, since it is pretty much Hyperthin. So it's kind of fine for them to just draw the card when you need them, and they're pretty good tempo too with 8 power. Like I mentioned, I got the Sangreal Secret Service combo here, so you can boost up one of your cards and then purify it out. So it's pretty good thinning, pretty good tempo. It gives you an option to bring out your own Secret Service and then purify the negative part of Sangreal right away. Yeah, that's pretty much the deck. So I think it'd be really fun. We have Radovid too for some more shuffles in case we draw our bricks, because we do have multiple bricks in the deck. I think we have in order of, let's see, 2, 3, 4. We have like five cards we don't really want to see in our hand at all. And then we also have other cards that we don't really want to see in too early on. And so that's when this Pincer Maneuver comes in to just shuffle things around and help you out there. So that's one deck. The other one I have is this Sigi deck, which is Duelers. So this is not Hyperthin so much, but we still do have some good thinning options. With the Secret Service Sangreal combo with Hubert's, a lot of orders. We don't have Siege package this time, but we do have Oneiromancy. And then this time we do want to use the Sigi order, so we have Inspired Zeal. And ideally your leader charges, one will be on Sigi there, one will be on Selkirk, who doesn't have Zeal. And then the other one you can kind of use in different ways. You could use it on Ballista. And I have Ballista, Lyrian, Landsknecht here to set up offering, so we don't have a Siege package. You could also use the Zeal on Says, play it back row, or Viraxas in that instance. And let's see, how else does this deck perform? So you still want to do a lot of boosting, deck boosting, mostly on Sigi, but you also have these Duelers as targets too, which can be good for offering. Not offering. All God, because he's going to be boosting 5 cards in deck with a double offering. And you can boost the Secret Service as well, because they will just come out, or Hubert. Depends how many points you need in current rounds or later rounds. Both of these decks too are playing Tactical Advantage. It's engineless, so you might think Crystal Skull, but I don't want to be putting statuses on my cards like every game in Blue Coin. We're just pulling out my Secret Service. So I did it like that. We got Triple Duel also potentially. Like Viraxas, your main target is probably Sigi. And we want to use just some of that deck boost to boost up like your Knights, so that you can use that Sigi order to pull one out. And then maybe use Viraxas to pull out the other one. And we do have just good boosty bronzes, or pretty good value bronzes generally. We have these techs with Peller and Squirrel, and Peller's additional Purify. It's a defensive Purify. It could help with that Sangreal combo too if the Secret Service has already been pulled out and it doesn't work out. Or just use it against like a Defender Resilience, right? Rattle of Forbidden Knowledge is a similar concept as the Sangreal, just giving you another option to add a status to your own unit. And it's also just very good with the Duelers, effectively just giving them a lot of extra reach. And we have a Boars as like a tech card. We'll have to see what the meta's actually like, but I think it'd be pretty useful. And other than that, we have some pretty good reach with these Duelers, and we can, like I said, Viraxas can also target these two. Yeah, and then we have Verification as a tech card as well. I think this deck could be outgraded, especially in longer rounds, so it could be helpful against like scenarios or like a meter generator, something like that. And we have a couple of artifacts with Drakenborg, Kersiren, and Vile, so it'll at least get 10 points on your own side of the board. And we have additional control with offerings, and the same with the other deck there. So this one's a little more mid-range. I think it's got some good points with the Duelers, and then using Sigi with Zeal and using his order ability. Just making good use of that. And we have like an overabundance of Purifies too. So if you Drakenborg one of your Zeal units, one of your Knights, or with Sigi, then you can just Purify them with like Sangreal, Purify, Peller, or with one of the Secret Services if they're still in the deck. Although with Sangreal you need an extra Purify. But Sangreal can be pretty nice on a Dueler. It can give points that even if you're not able to Purify it, let's say your Dueler loses some points in the duel, then you're not really too pressed about it because you're losing them anyway. But again, we have enough Purifies where that shouldn't be too much of a problem. And then again, we got the double Strays of Spala. It's a pretty good tempo, and also you can keep some of those gold cards back in deck where they belong, especially Sigi there. Or just cards you may not want to commit in an earlier round. Hubert's another card you might want to shuffle. And then Kersiren, just nice card. I think it works well in this archetype. Not only is the order boosting Sigi by effectively 6, but also it has some pretty good targets. You have Griffin Witcher, which can add another status self status to thin out your Secret Service if you want to. You also have Griffin Witcher Mentor, which can just add some boost to your units, which can be very nice, or shuffle some bricks back. And then, I mean, Adept does not really do anything. Ranger could be an option too, depending on the situation. But yeah, this is my other deck. I think this one might be more competitive than the other one. I mean, probably it will be. It's going to be less awkward, and I think it might have some more power with the Duelers. But again, these decks are just concepts for now, as there should be some more reworks, buffs, and nerfs that will accompany this patch. And also with the other 3 factions being revealed, that will also alter what kind of cards you may want to have. But I just thought I'd show them off. And so that's Northern Realms. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.